All right, so I'm almost done with this guy. I just want to do a few things to kind of finish it up, make it look nice and finished. Up here at the top of my layer stack, I have some just images from Google that I downloaded. I just got a variety of them, and I'll talk about those in a second. But the first thing I want to do, now that I have this guy all cleaned up and you know, kind of set up the way I want, I just want to go ahead and take all of my layers that have anything to do with this guy, and I'm just going to put them into a group. So I'm just going to select them and hit Control G, and that will put them in a group. And I'll just name this character. And then if I need to move something around, I can take this entire group and move it around. I can also add a mask to this group, a quick mask to this folder here. So if I just click on this little button right down here, that adds a mask to my folder. So if there's anything I don't want here, I can grab a paintbrush, a black paintbrush, and I can just paint that out of my scene. Now it doesn't erase it or anything. It's still there. You'll see down here that I have this little piece of black. That just means it's masked out. So it's still there. And if I want to take some white, I can paint that back in. Just for the moment, I don't really want it there. So I'm just going to mask that out. I can also take, now that I have this all in one group, I can take this guy and kind of move him around a little bit to center him up. I may want to come in with my crop tool and maybe make this environment he's going to be in a little bit bigger. And I can, oops. Don't want to do that. And then again, I can move him around a little bit to get him situated the way I want on the screen. I don't really need this gradient anymore, so I'm going to get rid of that. I do want to give this guy a little bit of a ground plane, maybe draw a few little rocks or something down here in the bottom. So I'll go ahead inside of this layer here. I'll go ahead and make a new layer and just call this ground. And then I can grab my brush. I'll go with black. Kind of just zoom in here. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Just be a few lines, kind of show a ground plane, and maybe draw a few little rocks here and there. So nothing too crazy, just some simple little lines. Like that, and you know, that's it. Maybe this guy doesn't really look like it's lined up, so just erase that. Something like that there. So, and I'll probably go in and add a little bit of color here. I don't know, we'll see what happens. So For now, I'm just going to leave that the way it is. And I want to look at some of these images I brought in from Google. And I basically just did an image search for forest or dark forest or something like that. And I got some images. Now these are kind of small, and I don't really mind that because I'm probably going to blur these out really, make them really blurry anyway. I don't really want the image itself. I just kind of want the color. So, and I want to play around with different ones just to see which ones match up a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and drag these below my character folder here. And one at a time, I'm just going to come in and I'll do a free transform on these guys, make them really nice and big. Kind of just find something that looks decent on each one. And I got multiple ones just because I'm not really sure which one I want to use. I'm just kind of trying to find one with color scheme I like, which I can always kind of change the hue and saturation later as well. I also tried to pick scenes with definite light sources. So you see you have this light source coming in here, which is the opposite direction that my light source on my guy is. So I want to go up to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. So I have that light in the right, sort of in the right direction. Same with this one. See, it has sort of a light source up here, so I'm just trying to find something that works. I don't really like that one. I think that one's a little too saturated, so I'm going to get rid of that. I kind of like this one because it's nice and monochromatic, and I kind of like that one. And that one's all right. It kind of looks like it's underwater though, so I think for now I'm going to go with this one. And what I want to do with it, I don't want to just go to filter, blur, and I don't want to just go to filter like Gaussian blur, because I can blur it, but then once it's blurred I can't really go back and blur it more without undoing a little bit. So I also see some problems here that I'm going to need to clean up. But all in due time. So instead of just blurring it like that, I want to first convert it into a smart object. So then I get that little icon right there, and that basically means it's a linked file at this point. Embedded inside of Photoshop, there's going to be this other file that's just this. So then what that allows me to do is add smart filters. So now I can go to blur, filter blur, and I can do a Gaussian blur. And now I can blur that image, and I get this little smart filter Gaussian blur thing here. So at any point I can just come in and I can double click that, and I can unblur my image. Double click, yep, there we go. So now I can unblur that image. So at any point I can come in and edit that. It's not, once I blur it once, it's not in there blurred like that forever. So that's looking pretty good. There is, and you know, I can come in and add some color and stuff like that to it. I can go to Control U, which is actually won't let me do Control U. So what I'll need to do is add a adjustment layer. So go to Image or Layers, New Adjustment Layer, and I want a hue saturation. Basically what that's going to do is give me an adjustment layer for the layer beneath it, or all the layers beneath it. If I just want it to affect that layer, I'm going to hold down my Alt button and just hover right in there in between those two layers and click, and that's going to link it to the layer below it. So now it's only affecting that layer beneath it. So then I can come in and I can alter this a little bit. So I can desaturate that a little bit. I can even change the hue to make it a little more green or blue if I want. I kind of like the color the way it is. So maybe I'm just going to desaturate a tad. And maybe come in and move this up a little bit. So there's definitely some cleaning up I'm going to want to do in here. And that's just from me, most likely. I think it's from my shadow layers and highlight layers for the most part. But I'll do that later, kind of after I'm done doing all this post stuff. So one really cool trick that I like to do to make things seem like they're glowing a little bit is I will just right here above my character layer, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to grab a nice fat soft brush, big fat soft brush like that, and I'm going to sample the color of that crystal there, maybe make it a little bit lighter, and I'll just paint like a big nice soft brush there. And it's going to look a little crazy at first, but if I come in and switch this layer to overlay, and maybe try a couple other ones here. Screen actually looks pretty cool. And so does color dodge, linear dodge. That one looks kind of nice, luminosity. I think the one I like the best though is linear dodge. Add, that one kind of has a nice feel to it. I do think it's, I do think it's a little too strong. So I'm just going to back the opacity down on it a little bit. And that gives the effect of, you know, that this guy has a little crystal on his staff that's glowing. You know, I can even come in with a different color, maybe a little bit of a cooler color, cooler, lighter color. And do something like that, so it's kind of got like a halo effect around it now. So that's a really cool thing, cool way to make things look like they're glowing. And you can do that with like fire, or you know, any sort of magical element in your scene that you want to look like it's glowing. So that's looking good so far. Another thing that I like to do is add some sort of noise to the entire image. So let's see if I have I'm basically looking, I usually have like a concrete image that I use. It doesn't look like I have it right offhand. So I'm just going to grab a Google image tab and just do concrete texture. So it doesn't need to be anything too crazy. I mean, you're basically just looking for a little bit of noise. So I think something like this might look okay. And that's a really large image. So let's try this one. There we go. So that one's not too bad. I can use this one. So I'll just go copy image, come over to my Photoshop, just Control V to paste that. And again, it doesn't really matter that it's a low resolution because we don't really need all that detail in there. I'm just looking for sort of noise to put over the entire image to kind of break it up a little bit. So then I can come through and I can check, I can go through all my different blending modes, try and find one I like. Overlay looks cool. It might be a little too much. I might need to back down the opacity on it. Divide, that one actually looks pretty cool because it gives us some white specks in there. Luminosity. Let's go with divide, but again, it is pretty strong there, so I'm just going to back down the opacity quite a bit. Something like 30%. And if I do like both effects, if I like, say, the overlay effect that I had and the divide effect, I could always come in and just duplicate this layer. And then I'll switch the other one to overlay. And you'll see that it basically canceled itself out when I did that. And that's just because those are both in the exact same place. So I just want to come in, you bump the opacity back up on that and just move that other one a little bit so those just aren't right on top of each other. And then bump that way down. So that gives it a nice amount of noise on the image, and it adds a lot of detail too. So it'll add like little texture and stuff in the shirt and in the skin to kind of make it look like there's dirt or grime on it. So I like adding just a noise texture to my image to kind of make it just seem a little dirty or grimy. Another really cool effect that you can do is sort of light rays. And to do something like that, it's kind of the same process we did with the little glowing crystal there. But instead, I'll make a new layer, and this time I'm going to select, just do a regular hard brush. I could always blur it later. And I'm going to select this color here, this sort of bright color. And they don't have to be big, and I can do this off over to the side somewhere, because I can always increase the size of this. Oops. And I'm just going to hold down Shift, and I'm just going to draw some lines that are kind of various distances apart. Maybe make my brush size a little smaller. And just do something like that. And then what I can do with this is I can take this little group of lines that I drew, I can rotate them, and I can scale them way up. You zoom out on my image a little bit. So I have something like that. Maybe rotate that just a little more. Try and match my light direction. And then just like I have my glowing thing set to linear dodge, I can also set these guys to linear dodge and drop the opacity way, way down. And they'll start to look a little bit like light rays. Probably want to come in and blur this a little bit, so I'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And then what I can do if it's a little bit too strong in areas is just erase it or even mask it out. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and make a quick mask. And I just have a black paintbrush here. And then I can just come in and mask out sections. So maybe like this one coming in has come in and maybe hit his arm a little bit. So let me grab a softer brush. So maybe that's come in and oops, I got the wrong brush. That's what's going on. Just going back to that guy. I was hitting the wrong hotkey. I was hitting O, and it kept switching to that tool instead of my brush size. So maybe it's coming in and hitting his arm there, and then like hitting his leg and disappearing. And I can erase the rest of that. And maybe this this big light ray here is coming in and just hitting head and disappearing, and these guys I can erase from the ground kind of make it look like it's a little past the ground here. This maybe it's hitting, part of it's hitting its staff and then passing through. And I can take these areas that actually reach the ground. I can go to my brush. And I still have that same color selected there. So what I can do is kind of make kind of like a pool of light around it, which is not really letting me do because I erased a lot of that stuff with my mask, but that's no big deal. I can just come in and with a white marker and like the entire ground looking a little bit like that. So then that gives the entire sort of image like light rays are coming in. I think it's a little too strong still, so I'll back those guys down to something like 8%. So that's a nice little trick. Another thing you can do is add a little bit of a vignette. So again, I'll make a new layer on top and just grab a black brush and a big soft paintbrush. And I'm just going to kind of paint in the corners. A little bit of black. To create a vignette, and then I can just come in and knock the opacity way down. It gives the entire image a vignette. So yeah, a lot of cool little tricks in Photoshop that you can really quickly make things look nice and clean with. I do want to come in and sort of clean up this image a little bit. So I think if I look in my character group here, I think basically what's happening is it's all the color and the shadows and everything that are below my line work in my sketch that are kind of going out of lines there. So what I'm going to try to do, I don't know if I can actually do this, but I'm going to try and take everything below my line work in my sketch and group it. One more time, and then I'll add a quick mask to that group. Oops. Then I should be able to come in and just paint a quick mask. Just grab my standard paintbrush again. Make it a lot smaller. I should be able to come in and just erase that a little bit. And because it's below my line work, shouldn't cause any major issues. Just going in and cleaning this up really quickly, and I should be pretty much done. And again, because this is masked, I'm not actually erasing any detail here. I'm just kind of making it transparent. So I can always come back if I make a mistake, and I can always just undo, but if I make a mistake and say close Photoshop and open it back up, the way I did it is non-destructive, so I can always just come in and re-edit my mask. So that mistake, I can correct that mistake even after I close Photoshop and open it back up, at which point I would have no undos. So obviously I couldn't undo, and I wouldn't have to go in and repaint everything. I could just edit my mask. So I'll just check everything out on final time. See how it looks. Looks pretty good. I might want to come in and say take my ground here and maybe just paint maybe paint these rocks. And I could paint the grass too, if I wanted to. So yeah, another thing that's really useful to do when you're done with it, kind of to bring everything together, you can always just do a adjustment layer on top of everything. So if I go up to layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation, and that would just be an adjustment layer on top of everything. So if I want to come in and desaturate my entire image, I can desaturate a little bit. If I want to lighten or darken my entire image, or if I just want to change the hue for the entire image, I can do that too. So usually I might come in and desaturate everything a little bit. And then one more thing that I like to do, aside from like adding a signature or something, is just giving a nice frame around my image. So what I'll do is I'll just create a shape. So I just go to my shape tool here, just make a cube on top of everything, and then cancel. I'll double click that to get my layer style window, which is on my other screen at the moment. There it is. And I want to add a stroke on the outside, make that nice and thick like that. And then I can come to my fill and my opacity. Just to be clear what the difference between fill and opacity is, I may have already covered this, but opacity will kind of drop the opacity of the entire level or entire layer. So see my black outline and everything disappears when I do that. However, fill will only decrease the opacity for the object on your layer. Any layer style or effect, it won't affect at all. So I'm just going to drop the fill all the way down for that cube, and you'll see that I still have my black outline there for my character. And then lastly, I'll just come in with a black brush and find somewhere to add my little logo or little character signature. And that's it. We have a finished piece of concept art. Still a little section I see that I could probably come in and clean up along the staff. Do that really quickly. And there we are. Next, I will we'll go into creating some orthographic views for this character so we can actually start modeling the character.